Welcome, everybody. We want to thank you for joining our webinar today. Today is the solutions to 7 dementia behaviors and how to avoid them. This is going to be a good one. So today we're going to be talking about behaviors. Now, behaviors are not always negative. They can be positive and they can be challenging. So we're going to kind of walk through some really good questions and kind of just zone in on some of the topics here and try to help you guys. We want to make sure you utilize us as a resource and a tool. My name is Paige Fairbanks-Gunn, and I work for Koelsch Senior Communities. We have 40 communities, and 80% of our properties are dementia care communities. So they're memory care communities. I'm in the Arizona region, and I've been working with caregivers and have been with family caregivers and have been in the dementia caregiving world since 1997. So I'm happy to have you guys here today, and thank you for joining us. And please, if you have a question, please put it in the chat and we will try to get to that. And it also gives us, it helps us with our future webinars as well, that if there's certain topics you want to go over, we can spin off of that. So
absolutely. Please let us know what you want to talk about on these webinars, because we do them monthly. I'm Pamela Ostrowski. I'm the author of It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey, which is a guidebook for people who are caring for loved ones with dementia. So it walks you through all the care options and the emotional roller coaster, and many of the topics that we cover in depth on the webinar are covered at a higher level within the book. So I did that because I've had my own 14-year journey with my mom, and my dad had vascular dementia towards the end of his life. And so I've experienced all of it. And then on top of that, I run a consulting business, Alzheimer's Family Consulting, that's focused on helping you on a one-to-one basis based on your specific situations and concerns and issues. And so today we're going to talk about behaviors. As Paige said, there's negative and positive behaviors. And so what we're going to do, and one of our favorite things to do on this webinar, is to address your questions that you've asked in advance. You received emails from me, and one of them was, what behaviors are you seeing? So we're going to answer those questions first, and then at the end of the webinar, we're going to cover the 7 behaviors and the solutions to them that are most common, the ones that we see the most. That will probably apply to you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on to those questions. All right.
Okay.
All right. So here's the first question. My dad gets really anxious and more emotional in the late afternoon. I don't understand why, as he hasn't really done anything all day but sleep, eat, and watch TV. Why is this happening? So Paige, what's happening there? What do we call this? And talk about behaviors. I think we really are very good at labeling things and not really thinking through what might be really causing the issue.
Well, the first of all, it's identifying what's triggering that. So, was Dad maybe at a big function yesterday? Was he at a big family reunion, or was he overstimulated the day before and he is just mentally exhausted? And for those of you, and I know all of you probably had this happen, the majority of you, where they can really rise to the occasion and really be almost 100% and they're doing really well. And you think, my gosh, they're just doing really well and they're firing on all cylinders. They can do that. But however, the next day they can crash and burn. That could be something that might be happening. Also too is it's just lack of social stimulation. They're not getting what they need. So if mom and dad are sitting at home, you're working, maybe they're home alone, maybe they're with a caregiver that's not maybe stimulating them enough. What are they doing? Are they bored? Are they just sitting in front of the TV? That's not good for them, just sitting in front of a TV, watching TV all day. So, really, it can be overstimulation from the day before or the morning of, or it can be lack of stimulation. They
Yep.
really do need that psychosocial stimulation, but not in huge amounts.
So yeah, and I
And
agree. So what you typically hear is people calling it sundowning. There's a
yes.
term is called sundowning syndrome, not sundowners. There's no such thing as sundowners. And it's not sundown, the Gordon Lightfoot song from the 70s. It is literally the time of day typically
Mhm.
is that mid-afternoon around, between 3 and 6 p.m. And I'm not a fan of the term, frankly, because I question if it's a thing. Because if something's avoidable, it's not a syndrome. It's a
Right.
result of a lack of something or too
Mhm.
much of something. So what Paige just said totally makes sense. And so what I suggest, so I had a client who said, "Oh, well, I take him with me. The husband is the one with the dementia. I take him with me, and we go out, and we have, we go out to the bank, and then we go to lunch, and then we will go grocery shopping." And she kind of went through this list, and I said, and then she said we get home, and he wants to take a nap, and I don't want to take a nap because he won't sleep, and I said, why don't we pace your schedule a little bit, pace it out a little bit so that he doesn't have so much going on? In the reverse, so our person who asked a question who said, that her dad just sits around and watches TV, there's no stimulation there. And one of the things about having dementia is that you lose it faster, so you degrade more quickly if you don't get stimulation. And TV is not stimulation. Crossword puzzles are not stimulation. And the reason why you'll hear people say socialization is because that's the easiest way. If you have a conversation with someone, you're stimulating their brain, they're having to react. It fires all of the brain cells and neurons. So that's a good thing. But the catch to that is that not all of us want to socialize with other human beings. And so learning a new language, learning a new game, doing jigsaw puzzles is different than doing crossword puzzles because it's recognition and then being able to, figure out how those pieces fit together. So the key here, just to recap, is overstimulation or understimulation. So make sure that your loved one is getting the right stimulation. And a lot of times we caregivers are the reason why, we're assuming that they're who they used to be. We're treating them like who they used to be. Like, well, if he wants to get up and do something, he can. Well, that's not the way this works anymore. You are the person who watches over their care, their activities, and their schedule. So therefore, you have to be the one who takes those actions. It's not the same. They're not the same. And we as caregivers need to recognize that and behave differently. We need to behave
We
differently,
have to change.
not them.
Yep. That's right.
Okay, what's next?
Okay. So my mom gets anxious and then angry with me when I try to help her. Why is this, and what causes these dementia behaviors?
So, another good question. So just to be clear, when we talk about um, behaviors, they can be acting out or they can
Mhm.
be speaking out. Those are the two big ones, right? So either someone's going to say, I'm not putting on my shoes, or I'm not taking a shower. And we would call that negative. Those are negative behaviors. Positive behaviors would be, someone smiling and laughing or enjoying a grandchild, whatever that might be. So it's important for us to take into account that when we label something behaviors, there's good ones and bad ones, or what's less desirable, I believe is what I put in the landing page information. So when we have less desirable behaviors, we need to look at what's triggering them. So the question is, what causes these behaviors? A lot of the time, it's anger and frustration at themselves. So we need to put ourselves in their shoes and be able to understand a couple things. One, we're expecting things to be like they used to be. So again, we have to change what we're thinking and what we're expecting. Well, he always used to like peas and now he just won't eat them. And now he likes carrots and I didn't have any carrots. And so we're getting frustrated and they're reflecting that frustration in their own way. And they get frustrated with themselves because in the earliest stages, so early to mid stage, there's moments of clarity. And so they're aware that there are issues and that they're not functioning like they used to. And they're angry at themselves that they can't remember something, they can't remember a name or a place or a thing, and or how to do something. So they act out or they speak out. So, we also have to realize that sometimes we're the trigger that especially with spouses. Well, I told you to put the garbage out and you still haven't put the garbage out. Why didn't you put the garbage out? And that nagging that is annoying and they can be hypersensitive to that. So we have to be really careful. Again, watch your own behavior. That's how we are triggers and we create the problem and then we look at them and say there's something wrong with them. And that's not fair at so many levels. So, when one of the things that the question asked was about, anxiety and being anxious is a very early on sign of Alzheimer's. And usually it's because they're in an unfamiliar situation. So if you take grandma to a soccer game, grandson's soccer game, it's going to be scary for her. She's in a new environment. She doesn't know where the bathroom is. She's not able to follow the game. She's just uncertain and just that makes people anxious when they're uncertain. So be careful about bringing your loved one into an uncertain environment, an unfamiliar environment. So those are my thoughts on what causes a lot of dementia behaviors. Paige, what about you? What are your thoughts on this? What's your experience?
Well, the biggest one is that they're losing their independence. They are not understanding what's going on at certain times. Sometimes they're in and out of their reality, but sometimes in and out of real reality. But it's their loss of they may not understand what you're asking them to do. So it really is, again, it's about us understanding we as caregivers need to slow down and we need to ask them slowly if we want them to do a task because we want everybody to maintain as much independence as possible, and your loved ones, your parents and your spouse, they want to continue doing things on their own. So we want to maintain that independence, but we must slow down and ask them in a very simple manner and each task slowly, because oftentimes they are going to have a moment where they understand they're not understanding what's going on and they're getting fearful and agitated and anxious, and all of those things rear its ugly head and it comes out. And so we have to try to be very kind and compassionate and really slow down.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Heather brought up a point here about her mom being living at home. So a lot of what we're talking about is mid to late stages, honestly. So, Stephanie had mentioned behaviors are their communication. I say yes and no to that, right? Because again, behaviors can be good or bad. So they're still going to laugh, they're still going to smile, they can still communicate with their hands. But in much like you, Heather, my mom lost her ability to speak 8 years before she passed, and her ability to walk 5 years before she passed. So Heather's question is, she can't really communicate. She's living at home. So Paige and I are going to head in that same direction of why is she living at home at this stage? And you said your own health is circling the drain. So you are way beyond, you are way beyond having the need for her to be taken care of in a professional environment. And Of course she's often agitated. She can't do things. She can't communicate. If you put duct tape over your mouth and couldn't communicate for a day, you'd be really agitated. So there's no rocket science there. We're not telling you something you can't figure out. But the bottom line is that she shouldn't be at home because one, she's getting worse faster. And two,
Mhm.
she's in a situation where she's not getting the stimulation she needs. And because of that, she's having more and more issues. And I think, Heather, you had mentioned last time, so you were on the last webinar about, well, it's not affordable necessarily, or, there isn't a good place nearby. So, we can talk to you offline to help you come up with some creative ideas. The good news is you do have a caregiver there. Um, and yeah, Stephanie, actually, that's what we are too. So yeah, we try not to advertise our services. But yeah, so Heather, ultimately, this comes down to making sure that you get your mom the right care. And you can't keep going through caregivers either. So Steve asked a question. Paige, did you want to read that?
Yes, let's see here. Okay. Steve says, all of a sudden, my wife has become super sensitive to bed sheets. Now she insists that they are 100% cotton and fidgets with her clothing, telling me certain articles of clothing are irritating her. Hmm, that's
It's quite
interesting.
possible that they are. I mean, why?
Hmm.
I guess the question is, Steve, why do you think she's wrong?
Yeah. Well,
Because
I would definitely get cotton sheets.
yeah.
Definitely get cotton sheets. And maybe fidgeting with her clothing. To me, that tells me that she needs something else to fidget with because she doesn't have anything else to fidget with.
Very good point.
Um, and is there something going on with her skin underneath? Is she, super sensitive? Does she have anything going on, rash wise or
Dermatitis or
anything like that?
something. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Dry
something
skin.
going on there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, especially
Yep.
with dry skin. And as we get older, we do dehydrate more. So yes, I mean, it's quite possible she's telling you the truth. But fidgeting, yeah. So giving her something to do, sort the laundry, sort buttons, have her paint something, working on jigsaw puzzle, any of the things that, as the disease progresses, we have the ability to really focus on tactile, to what touch, what it feels like. And so that might be what she's doing is she's fidgeting, she's touching her clothes because she doesn't have, like my mom had I forget the name of, but like a Beanie Baby, only it was like at the Tyco really soft plush toys. And in a lot of memory care communities, you'll see baby dolls, you'll see stuffed animals, just small things that they can hold in their hand and stroke, or a soft scarf, like a cashmere scarf. These are the kinds of things that give them
We need
comfort.
to sensory.
So,
Mhm.
yes, exactly, very much so, and sensory. So Heather wrote back and said that her mom wants to die at home. Well, the problem with that is that this might be going on for 10 years. So she's not going to she may not die in the way that she wants to die. And that's a tough one, that, and your child's care skills, she's not a child, she's a full adult. So those work to some extent, but not to and of course it's taking a toll on your health.
Right.
So ultimately you will die before she does, potentially. I don't know how old you are, but that we've seen a lot where
Mhm.
caregivers are the ones who end up in the hospital and end up debilitated because of their caregiving.
And
So
if you can't get caregivers 24/7, which it sounds like she should be having caregivers 24/7, but maybe you're piecing it together, and I know that's can be challenging and a lot of families do, but if you don't have access to 24/7 caregivers, I would highly recommend, Heather, that you do a respite stay. At least if you are dead set on keeping her at home and not making a move, do a respite stay somewhere for 30 days. And then that
yeah,
way you are testing it out. you are getting, you're recharging your battery, you're able to, do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself. And in the meantime, you can definitely, think about, bringing her back home or whatever you want to do. But
Right.
so
And the
she's
fact
got
that she has,
24/7 care.
yeah, she's got 24/7 care. So I guess the question is, what's eating at you? What are you feeling? Why are you feeling the way you're feeling? So a lot of this comes down to us, as you can gather from my conversation so far about this, is that ultimately it comes down to the things that bother you may not be bothering her. And the fact that she's agitated. So if you have caregivers who can't cope with her being agitated, then odds are you have the wrong caregivers,
Yeah.
which is another issue, right? So you need to have dementia trained caregivers. And it can't just be someone who's coddling her because she doesn't need that. She's a full adult who's lived a full life, and we need to respect that. And not all people who are caregivers are trained for dementia caregiving. So, there's a lot of good courses out there on that. Tipa Snow's Positive Approach to Care is a great one. And then people like Visiting Angels and several other, like Home Instead, they do have on staff dementia caregivers. So those are, to me, it sounds like you've got the wrong caregivers that are caught. And also, why are you upset about her being agitated? Because that's just it's a natural thing, right? And maybe she's just, agitated about a lot of things, including her condition. So, okay. And then this may not be appropriate, but
I was
discuss
responding back to Steve.
pros and
So,
cons of a group home versus, yeah. So that's out of the scope of this. But Steve, what I can do is I can send you a couple of the videos that we've done, webinars that we've done in the past, and then Paige can reach out to you if you're good with it, to email you and have that conversation with you privately. So, all right. Thank you
next
for
one.
the chats and the content. Very much appreciate it. And we'll move forward. So Paige, are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't always control when my mother gets triggered. No, we can't. What can I do to address her anxiety and other behaviors once she's triggered? So after after that trigger point happens, what is it that caregivers can do? That's for you, Paige.
Oh, sorry. You went totally blank, but I have the
Oh,
question. So, yep.
okay.
So, basically, can't control your mother when she gets triggered. 100% you must validate her feelings. First of all, first and foremost, always validate their feelings. If you can try to reduce loud distractions, like, where are you? What's the environment look like? Is the TV too loud? Are there too many people in the environment? And never correct or argue with her, because you will not get anywhere. So that will only escalate her irritation or agitation. Try to distract and, Mom, let's go have a cup of tea. Can you help me with something? I always am asking, if I get a resident in one of our communities and they're stressed out or they're anxious or they're fearful, I always say, okay, you know what? Could you please come and help me with something? I need your help. And usually they usually are in tune with that, and they want to they want to be helpful. So I usually really try to ask them, could you please help me with something? I need your help. And usually I can get them redirected and with me, and I can get them kind of redirected. But always validating, and being just so kind and loving. They always respond in kind and loving manner. So,
Yep.
and your nonverbal communication, your body language is key. It is absolute key.
And the tone of your voice. Um,
Yes.
so
Pam, how about you?
yeah,
We got a
so to
couple
me,
questions here.
yeah, and out of the scope of this particular conversation, but um let's stop for a second and answer just to get them off the screen. So you're asking about Aricept. Aricept only works for certain parts of the dementia population. And the original theory of Aricept and Namenda, so the two drugs, and there's a combo drug that actually includes both of them, is to help with undesirable behaviors. And it only works in that function on certain people, so it doesn't work for everyone. The original purpose of it was to delay the progression of the disease, but they haven't really seen that happen. And if you think about it, how would you know? Yeah, that's the first go-to for doctors, your primary care physician. Oh, we'll just give them Aricept. It's not going to make much difference. If there's issues with behavior such as anger or something else, that typically requires a different kind of medication. There's no real side effects for it for someone with dementia. The point is really, why would you take Aricept or Namenda if it's not going to make a difference? So I would suggest going to a neurologist and having that conversation with them. It is the default. Aricept and Namenda are the default drug for dementia, under the pretense that it should slow down the progression of the disease. Again, nothing works for everyone, so it's true of any issue. Okay, so back to the question about getting triggered. So once your person is triggered, the first thing you do is remove the trigger. It might be you. Just a heads up. I have so many clients that are triggers for their loved ones because they're the person telling them what to do. And if you tell somebody what to do, if I told you what to do right now, you'd be like, well, don't tell me what to do. So they still have that in them. They're still human beings. They still have a core personality. And so if you're the trigger, look back at your behavior. What happened 5 minutes before this whole thing went down, so that you can eliminate or avoid it in the future? But then also you want to be sure that you're paying attention to removing the trigger, putting on calm music, creating a calm environment, and reducing the pressure on both of you to do something. So if the person is triggered and they're having a fit, it's first of all, remove the trigger and then be like, okay, you know what? Let's just have a seat. So what Paige said, redirect, or, say, come to tell you what, why don't we go for a walk?
Yep.
And my dog just paid attention to that, by the way. Or why don't we just sit quietly for a few minutes? And, you have to discharge the situation before you can move forward. And a lot of times when we redirect, we confuse them. It's like, well, wait a minute, you told me I had to put my shoes on, and I don't know how to put my shoes on, and now you're telling me that we're going to have lunch, and it's too much. And so a lot of times we push them at our speed instead of at their speed. Usually it takes them 10 to 20 seconds to process what you're saying to them and then react. So you've got to give them more time. And ultimately, once they're triggered, it's going to take you longer to discharge the situation. So that would be my advice. Paige, Deb has said here, my client hasn't spoken in 6 years, likes to whistle. Oh, I can see where this is going, and constantly walks. Constantly walking is a big one. It works off anxiety. After I leave, husband puts her in front of the TV. 3 years ago, when I started caring for her, I would tell her, let's turn left. Now she doesn't know directions. I give when we are walking. How much walking is too much? Another hired caregiver takes her on a 5-mile walk in sandals.
Not in sandals. Not in sandals. That's not
Well,
good.
not 5 miles either. 1 mile
No.
3 times a day is fine, but not 5 miles in one walk. Um, yeah.
And is she losing weight?
Well, yeah, that would be the other thing. So the caregiver doesn't know. This points to a whole other issue. If a caregiver isn't trained in how to work with somebody with dementia, sitting down, doing something with them, then they shouldn't be taking care of your person, because that person is walking her so that she can tire her out, and so she'll go to sleep. And that is unreasonable. It's also, I mean, to me, if somebody did that to my mom, I would sue them for abuse. adult preventive services. So ultimately, it's important for us to make sure that we pay attention to the caregivers that we hire. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my thought on that. Deb, Paige, did you have any comments?
No, I agree with you on that one. That's way too much.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Okay. So the next one is I get really frustrated after the 10th time of answering the same question. What can I do to stop my mom or dad from doing this? Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
so
this is very
so
common.
Yes, well, so it's one of the key symptoms of dementia is loss of short-term memory. It is not the only symptom. We do have a long webinar on symptoms and what other things besides memory loss really are demonstrating the key areas of Alzheimer's and dementia. When they ask the same question, there's a couple of ways to handle it. So if I ask you the same question and you don't answer it in a way I can understand it, what am I going to do? I'm going to ask you the same question with the exact same words, hoping that you come up with a different way to answer, but you don't. So now you've got these two people having the exact same dialogue over and over and over again. That's why you get frustrated. So instead of doing that, why don't you, right? So it's always us, it's not them, respond differently. So this is where you get to stretch your brain cells and be able to create new neural pathways to how can I say this differently? And ultimately, by you can also do something that I call a related tangential conversation. So one of my clients, the husband was had heard about through friends that and he had dementia, has dementia, and he had heard that a high school buddy had died. Well, he got stuck on that guy, and we should go out and visit him, right? So he missed the connection of obituary and the person had passed away. And so the wife is like, well, I told him he's dead. I told him he's dead. And I told him, and I'm like, well, dead clearly is not resonating with him. So one, is it important that he understand that he's dead? Like, why would you push that? Instead, how about saying, yeah, George, whatever the guy's name is. I remember him. You've talked about him before. Didn't he do X, Y, and Z? Didn't he play football? And that's a tangential redirection. You're using the topic and you're redirecting them to something different but related so that they feel like they're not being ignored. So that would be my thought on the repetitive stuff is respond differently and
Mhm.
get creative or use a related tangential topic. Paige, what about you?
Well, this is very, very common, and it's kind of like Groundhog Day and 51st Dates. It happens over and over and over again. But since you don't have dementia as the caregiver, remember, this is the first time they're asking it each time. They don't remember that they've asked 15 times before that morning. So we need to remember that and act like it's the first time they've asked it, the very first time. But what might help you and help your loved one is they need what is very helpful for a lot of our residents and families that we work with is get a dementia clock so they understand what day it is, what time it is. Get a big, maybe a cork board or a big whiteboard and put down the activities of the day so they know what's going on, so they can see what's happening every day. That may be helpful for you, but just I know it can be irritating for caregivers, but it is literally the first time they've asked it each time. So we just need to be mindful and act like, okay, that's the first time they've asked it when we know they've asked it 10 or 15 times. But a whiteboard can be helpful, a little agenda for them every day, not too big, not too full, but a routine will help them. Routine is key in successful caregiving daily. That would be
Yep.
my
Absolutely. Jennifer has asked a question about whether her mom is demonstrating signs of dementia. The short answer is yes, from my perspective. Because they do get locked in the past. And we're not talking 10 years ago. We're not even talking 20 years ago. We're talking 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Young.
And it is natural. Starting at the age of 30, everybody don't get depressed, but starting at about the age of 30, we start losing brain cells and we start losing our ability to remember certain things. Not everybody, but a lot of people, right? So your brain's capacity changes. As we get older, it becomes harder to remember certain things. And those differ, of course, for each individual. So it's very unique. So each person's definition of dementia will be a little bit different, but living in the past, not recognizing time it was one of the first one. Anxiety and telling time, understanding time of day, season, any of those things are signs of a degrading dementia situation. So, ultimately, Jennifer, her living with you, means that you should bring a caregiver in sooner than later. I am a big fan of sooner than smarter because you're going to need support and you can't do it all on your own. So that's a really important aspect of any caregiver role. Yes, Heather, that's why we were saying you need a respite stay. You need to recover from being with mom. And how do you, you can call her every day, but to her, you didn't call at all. And once a week is good. That's not too much. But the bottom line is if you are emotionally struggling, you need to not visit her for a couple weeks. You need to take care of you because again, you're the one who's going to pay the price. She's not going to know. People with dementia live into their 90s. So, well into their 90s sometimes. And so, they're usually pretty healthy for some reason. I don't know why that is, but, ultimately, if you don't take care of yourself, you'll be the casualty. And, the only way you can protect yourself is it does sounds like for now you need to work on coping skills. You and I can work together on that. That's what I do. I work one-on-one with caregivers about how to deal with the emotional overwhelm. And really, we can't do a deep dive here on where your head is at and what you're coping with or what you can't cope with. Everybody's different and there's nothing wrong with you. This is a hugely emotional journey and it's exhausting. And that's why for Jennifer, we're saying get a caregiver, make sure that you get out and get away from mom. Because if you live with her 24/7, or even if you visit her once a week and she's not who she was, she's somebody else. I always say they're evolving. They're not disappearing. A lot of people say they're disappearing, right, Paige?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. They're evolving.
They're evolving into someone else as they lose their memories for short term and as they link back to the older memories, and those are things that you guys don't share anymore, and that's what's heartbreaking. So we can talk more about that. I think that would be a good thing to talk about. Next session is about how to have a more positive experience as a dementia caregiver. So let's put that on the list page for talking about that specifically, because we'll have more time then.
I just want to chime in, Jennifer. I giving you a big virtual hug. And I'm glad she's at home with you, but I would definitely think about respite care. Just have that in your back pocket. So, and you and I can text later. And then Heather, definitely, respite care is definitely needed. I just helped a woman place her husband, and it was 30 to 60 days respite stay. And we just did it on kind of a flexible, let's see how he does. Let's, you can take it week by week. And she's going to be placing him, and she hasn't seen him for almost 30 days. And I suggested she doesn't see him for 30 days. And she has actually been able to go to her doctor's appointments, and she's been able to, take care of herself. And she's getting better, and it's working out. So respite care is huge. So just wanted to.
It is huge. Absolutely. So it is invaluable. And to me, If I were a medical doctor, if I was your medical doctor, I would say, here's the prescription. And if you don't take it, I'm not going to be liable for your health because you really, really need to do that. And in a lot of cases, it's not, it's, there's different pricing and that type of thing. And Paige, this next question it kind of goes up
Yes,
this. And then Charisse, we'll get to your question. I'm afraid to put my mother in memory care because I don't know how other residents will behave towards her. However, she needs better care than I can provide. Help. So Paige, what are your thoughts on how because my mom was at Rock Creek, and
Mhm.
it is a concern of anybody who moves their loved one into a memory care community or a group home, Steve, that oh, how are other people going to treat her? So what do you put in place? What's in a community that makes sure that our parents or our loved ones are safe and that they're interacting safely?
Well, transitioning your loved one to a memory care community or assist anything is one of the hardest things for a caregiver, and especially a spouse. But I will tell you, in our Koelsch communities, it's usually it takes a couple different meetings. We do a very thorough evaluation, and whether that be in the home, we come to you. We want to get to know your loved one. We want to find out, what their environment is like, who they are as a person. We find out a very, very extensive social biography background of who they are, and really just have a very informal visit to really find out who they're going to best be with our residents that we currently have, and pair them up appropriately with someone that they're going to thrive with and build friendships with. A lot of family members and family caregivers are so worried about, oh my gosh, you're coming to see my mom to evaluate. What are you going to ask her? Are you going to ask her certain questions? We ask certain questions, but we aren't going to ask the questions that we know that she might not know. So we're not going to do those mental exams. If you've ever heard of the Menti mental exam, the MME or
MIMSA, it's MIMSA, mini memory state exam.
the mini mental was what we call it. We shorten it.
Yeah.
We're not going to ask questions like, do you know who the president is? Do you know we're not going to ask those questions. It's a very informal visit, very comforting, fun, loving visit, just to kind of get to know them. And then what we do is we bring that information back to the family members, and we all sit down at a round table. And it may be one family member, several family members, and really develop a very intense, service plan that's really tailored towards your loved one. So you feel comfortable and make sure that you have a full network of a care team that you can count on. In our Koelsch communities, we have departments. We have a full nursing department. We have a nurse on site 24 hours a day. That is not the norm in Arizona. Other states, usually not, but in Arizona, that's not the norm. But that's what we do. We have a nurse on site. We have an executive director. We have all these different departments that can help wrap our arms around your loved one and protect them and care for them and get to know them. It is a transition. I'm not going to lie. It takes about 30 to 60, sometimes 90 days for someone to transition into a care community. But I always also tell people, if they're fearful for any reason, do a 30-day respite stay and see how it is. And then you can really kind of get decide, and other family members can see how they do. And we can give you a very extensive feedback on how they do. So that's, kind of a long answer, but I tell families, try not to be fearful, but start your research now, build a relationship, tour a community or two or three. I wouldn't suggest touring 10 or 15, find 3 or 4 max. Start building a relationship with the one that you feel best fits your loved one, and start that relationship now.
Yeah, absolutely. And with my mom, the thing I was concerned about is like, well, what is she going to do? And she wasn't very social. So, how's that going to integrate? And, are people going to annoy her? And you're concerned about that. And in reality, they swooped her up and took her into the activity room, and they gave her a paintbrush, and she started painting a birdhouse. And my mother never picked up a paintbrush in her life except to paint a wall. So to be painting a birdhouse. And then the next time I came in, she had this big baking hat on, and they were stirring cookie dough and they were making cookies. And the next time, she was listening to music. So I danced around her wheelchair, and there's happy moments to be had, and a community. So Stephen, just to answer your question on a side note, we didn't do a group home because it's too small of a confined environment. You're talking 4 bedrooms, one living room. If somebody's upset or having a bad day, everybody has a bad day and everybody gets agitated. A community, you may have 50 residents, but you've also got, you tell me, Paige, if you have 20 people there that are staff that are paying, even the chef greets people, the residents, and says things. How do you like your mashed potatoes today? And it just,
It's a
everybody,
village
a
in a
family,
community.
it's a village. There's a reason why they call them memory care communities, because they really are. And my mom was very happy at Rock Creek for 3 years before she passed. And everybody loved her. She loved everybody. That is not the way I, as her daughter, would have anticipated it going down. So again, it's us projecting on them. So same thing with boundaries, Jennifer. If you don't have boundaries, that's on you, not on your mom. All right. And a lot of times we're just like, oh, well, she needs me. No, she doesn't need you that much. And she needs to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. So it's like, Mom, I need your help. I'm going to go to the grocery store. Can you watch the cat? Oh, whatever it might be. But giving them a task and giving them a purpose is a great way to help with behaviors. Now,
Exactly.
Cherise mentioned about her ex-husband, and you probably had a chance to read this page, but the question is, how much do you talk about Alzheimer's? That ship sailed, in my opinion. Talking about dementia and somebody having it in front of them is just mean, honestly, because they understand that the wheels are falling off,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and they can't fix it. So why would you put that in their face? So
Right.
instead, it's all right. Well, we all need to be. We've talked about this in a previous webinar, about you can position it as, hey, I was thinking about, if something happens to my memory or my ability to do something, I think I'm going to move. I want to move to memory care because I think or assisted living, where I can continually get stimulation, and I'll slow down the progression of the disease. Talk about yourself and what you
Right.
want, and you don't have to, you don't need to put that in front of them at
Right.
all, in my opinion. Do you agree,
And if
Paige?
they bring it up, then
That's
again,
different.
validate their feelings. Let them know that you're doing things to help them, and we call it, try to spin it on a positive and try to redirect and kind of somewhat change the subject, or letting them know you're seeing a doctor, or there's things that they're doing, things like that. Try to redirect, but don't bring it up unless they do.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
You can talk
Yeah.
to your sons and have that conversation with them, but I would
That is
advise
definitely a
against.
trigger topic for sure. We don't want
Yeah.
to don't want to bring that up. And
No.
Pam, I think we should probably jump to 7, don't you?
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
We've had a lot of
so
good questions. Thank you,
oh, this
everybody.
is awesome, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting in the chat. All right, so Paige, we heard from another person who said my father has been diagnosed with early stage dementia. So a little bit like what you're talking about, Jennifer and Charisse. I want to be prepared to help him, but I'm not sure what I'm preparing for. Can you tell me what are some of the dementia behaviors? What are some of the major dementia behaviors? So so we start off with our top 7, right?
Yep.
So the first one, I'll take the first one and we'll go back and forth. Is that good, Paige?
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so asking the same question repeatedly. We actually answered this one already.
Yep. Asking the same question.
Anxiety, we also talked about anxiety. So if they're anxious, put them in a calm environment, distract them with, I need help with. It's a
Yes.
golden phrase I need help with because they're still in there till they die. And if you're a son or a daughter, or even a spouse, you asking for help makes them feel valuable. It gives them
Mhm.
purpose. So, did you have anything to add on anxiety, Paige?
Yeah, the anxiety is a given. They're all going to have forms of anxiety. So, what does that look like? I'm not a huge believer in medications, of course, but I am a big believer in medications for anxiety. And what that looks like, maybe try things that aren't medications, sensory stimulations, essential oils, certain activities and engagement. If they're bored, they're not stimulated enough, that can cause anxiety. So try those things first, but oftentimes most of the people I work with, once they get them on a mild anti-anxiety, that usually can help them. It really can. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
What's the
And
next
then
one?
uh frustration and agitation. This is another one. You can, depending on the level of frustration, I would say definitely always stem towards what is the environment? What is going on in the environment? Who is the person? Is certain times there's certain triggers. I mean, I have a resident years ago that I looked like this gentleman's daughter, and he was not happy with his daughter. They had a horrible relationship, and so I had to
Oh, no.
remove myself from a certain area in the building because he thought I was his daughter. So,
Wow.
what is it the person? Is it the environment? Removing some of those things in an environment, and maybe changing up people. So try that first. But also agitation medication sometimes is needed depending on the severity of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And with my dad with vascular dementia would get really frustrated, and he was what I call angry and paranoid. So he would accuse people
Mhm.
of stealing things. And the only way to help calm him, one was to play music, and two was to point out, like I would find what it was that he had accused someone of stealing, and I'd say, so maybe this is how we should work through this, where if you think you've lost something or if you think someone's taken something, then
Mhm.
let's work through that together first before we start
Yes.
accusing people. So really it comes from a place of kindness, of empathy, of calm, and
Mhm.
being able to work through. So if you need ideas, this is what I do for a living, guys, and this is what Paige does for a living. We're experts, we're certified, and we work with you one-on-one to walk through the situations that you're in, because taking, your favorite herbal medications may or may not work. The bottom line is it's your mind and your mindset. So please attend next month's, because we are going to talk about mindset and really controlling the way your thoughts work when you're in this situation. I lived it for 14 years. I feel your pain. But it really is important that you work on you, to deal with their frustration or their behaviors. What's next, Paige? This is one of your favorites, I
This is
think.
this is one of my favorites, wandering. So wandering can be extremely dangerous, everybody, especially for those that are living in very cold, very hot weather climates. This is a very serious behavior. You really need to find out what is going on. Are they sundowning? Are there triggers going on that are, especially if you have a loved one at home and you're leaving them home alone, and they've wandered possibly out of the house at one time, you should never, ever be leaving them home alone, ever. Because the problem, oh, well, they never do it. Oh, they've only done it once. I hear that often. And it's like, okay, well, the moment out of sight, out of mind, and they don't see their loved one, and you're kind of their Velcro when they're Velcroing to you, which that happens very often. They don't see you in a room, they're finding you, they're looking for you. The moment you run down to the Walgreens to pick up that prescription, they're out the door. Okay. So, and we have very we don't always live in a very kind world, everybody. So there are people that take advantage of people. And it doesn't just have to be people, it can be the weather. So then you got a silver alert potentially. And then, have where are they? I mean, that is terrifying to me. When I work with families and they say, oh, well, they've only done it a couple times. So not good. Not at all.
No,
You should never be
no,
leaving them alone, ever, if they have walked out the door and they're looking for you or they're Velcroing you at that point. Don't ever leave them alone. Grab a
no.
neighbor, grab a family member, grab somebody, grab a caregiver to come over for a couple hours, but that is too dangerous.
And it can also
And
happen at
driving.
night. So my mom would
Oh,
get up
yeah.
in the middle of the night and get dressed, and she would stand over my dad and scared the hell out of him.
Yeah.
But one time she did leave. And so if you're in a situation where you're home or they're home with you or you're with them, putting a slide lock
Mhm.
at a spot on the door that you can reach, but they can't, or they can't see it. Because a lot of times they're out of sight, out of mind. Peripheral vision is less as you get older. So if you put it up, where you can reach it at, 6 feet, there 6.5 feet, or even 7, you can put a slide lock in there and that will secure your house at night.
Yep.
So,
You can put a
okay.
drape over the door at night too.
Oh, there
You
you
put a
go. That's
put a drape
another
over the
good one
door,
too.
the front and
Yep.
the back door. I mean, there are ways, but if you're keeping them at home, don't leave them alone if they have wandered out, please.
Yep, exactly. So we have 3 more and 2 minutes. So depression or sadness. So how do you deal with that? So depression is more common in men than women, which is interesting. And there's a lot of people who are on antidepressants who have dementia. So, there's going to be times when they're going to be sad. By the way, if your loved one starts crying out of the middle of nowhere, have them tested for a UTI, a urinary tract infection, because my mom, and they're very common, especially in women,
Yes.
like once a month, they're going to have a
Eh,
UTI. And it's a lot of it is about controlling their fluid intake. And the nice thing about when mom was at Rock Creek is that she would drink lots of fluids. And so,
mhm.
that created another issue on the other end, but it took care of UTI issues. But UTIs are inevitable. And so
Yeah.
you can have the symptoms of depression or sadness without, but they're medically, created. So, what are some other thoughts around depression and sadness so we can get to the next couple of pages?
Depression and sadness, 100% music.
Yes.
Music, music,
Yes.
music.
Yeah.
Turn on their
Their
favorite,
music,
their
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 favorite
music,
music.
not your music. Remember,
Yeah.
this is not about, well, it is about us as caregivers because we have to change our behavior, but it's all about them. So
Yep.
music, everything that they love, turn it on, dance with them. That will usually turn things around as music can be very, very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next one is resisting doing a task where like they don't want to take a shower or they don't want to brush
Oh,
their
I
teeth.
love this one. I
Go
love this
ahead.
one.
Go for it.
Who cares? Who cares if they resist? You know what? Because in an hour, they probably won't. So shift your gears and okay, we're not going to do that right now. Let's go grab, you know what? Let's pull the cookies out of the oven. Let's go have some milk and cookies. In about 20 more minutes later, try the task again. If you can't get it done, try a different person, try a different time. But if they can't get the task done in that moment, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world.
Exactly, exactly. And it again comes down to our expectations. So our
Yes.
expectations are, well, you need to take a shower every day. No, you don't. Usually twice a week is
No.
plenty, and it doesn't have to be a shower. Taking your
Right.
clothes off when you have dementia and stepping into a bunch of water can be extremely scary. Why would you
Yes.
do that? So put
Yes.
out a washcloth and get it wet and have a bar of soap, maybe get it soaped up for them so that they can just do their thing. And if they need help, have a caregiver do it. Don't you do it. Your
No.
job as a son, a daughter, or a spouse is not to wash another person's private parts. It is offensive to them and they will resist it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's a trigger. and you don't realize, I'm just trying to help mom. Well, you're creating another issue. So let's stay in our boundaries and stay in our roles when we're trying to help people.
That
So
was one thing my dad said. He said, "Don't you dare change my brief."
yeah,
I
yeah.
said,
There
"Absolutely.
there
I
are
will not.
rules.
I will
There
not."
are rules, and honestly, daughters disrespect them all the time because we're the overachiever, we're the over helper.
Right.
Here, let me do that for you. Let me cut your meat. Let me do this for you. Let me do, you're driving them nuts. So let's stop
Yeah.
doing that. All right,
And the
social
last one,
withdrawal.
social
This is another one
withdrawal.
of yours. Do it.
Yes, this
Go
is a
for it.
big one. If they are socially withdrawn, they're not getting the stimulation. If they're not socially stimulated, they're going to decline faster. So they need, if you're piecing stuff together, you're doing it at home, try to get some adult daycare involved. Get that caregiver, different people to come in, your family support group.
Friends.
Joining a dementia family support group is key. You getting that support, but bringing in other family members, your family
Memory
support
Cafe.
unit. Absolutely. Memory cafes. Look up your memory cafes. Those are huge for people. They can go enjoy an activity while you, as the caregiver, goes to the support group. But they need social stimulation because they're just going to continue to decline. And it's
Right.
sad
Well,
because if they're not engaging themselves with any other person and just a TV, they're not exercising their brain.
right,
That's
right.
sad. That's lonely.
It is. And social withdrawal, usually you'll see, do you want to go out for breakfast? No, I'm fine at home. I'd rather eat at home. Or they find excuses or reasons. No, I don't want to go to my grandson's soccer game. It's too cold. It's too hot. It's too
Right.
humid. It's too dry. They're really good at coming up with reasons because they don't know where a bathroom is. They're going to get disoriented. They don't even know who their grandson is, depending on how far progressed they are. So those are the things that you watch for. And then you find other ways for them to be engaged where they're comfortable. And
Right.
that's the problem. We put them in our environment and expect them to be comfortable, and they are anxious, they're frustrated, they're
Mhm.
scared, they're all those things. And then you want to know why they're acting out. Guess what?
That's right.
You put them in that situation. So we have
Yeah.
we could talk about this forever, guys. Thank you for all of the chat questions and
Yes, thank
scenarios
you.
and everything. This was wonderful. And so next, it's going to be August 26th. And just
Mhm.
a quick reminder to everybody, these start at 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Mountain, 6 o'clock Central. So if you're in Chicago, and some East Coast people that have joined us, that is 7 o'clock your time. So a lot of people, struggle with the time zones. So just want to
And
make
you'll
sure.
all get the recording. So,
Yeah, you're going to get the recording. I get the recording out to you on Friday, by Friday afternoon. So it'll be in your email. If you don't see it in your inbox by Friday afternoon, go look in your junk mail because 9 times out of 10, that's where it ended up for some reason. I don't know why. So next webinar, August 26th, and it's going to be on 7 steps to a positive dementia caregiving experience. So we're looking forward to seeing you there, and I will send you invitations out to that so you can register for that as well. So thank you guys, appreciate it, and take good care of yourselves.
have a good day, everybody. Thanks.
All right,
Bye.
thanks
Thanks,
again.
Pam.
Thank
Bye.
you.